and there's a small amount that is still never quite left. There's an office space, so that's interesting to know. Most of you have worked with public building service in the past, about 67%. 41% have worked with FAS. And it looks like 37% of you have worked with our account managers and planning managers. About 15% have worked with our workplace, the total workplace group, our interior design group, the customer accounts branch. And we even have 7% that have worked with the Integrated Workplace Acquisition Center. And it looks like most of you have heard about this event through a coworker. That's interesting. That's 41%. 37% heard about the event through the planning manager or account manager. So interesting. Thank you very much for completing the poll. My name is Dorothy Grosick. I work for General Services Administration in the Mid-Atlantic region. I'm the branch chief for our customer accounts branch. And I just want to welcome everyone here today. It's wonderful that you could join us. We have quite a few people that have joined us today. So as we get started here, just a few things. The customer accounts branch is sponsoring this event in collaboration with PBS's Workplace Solutions and the Interior Design sections, as well as our sister agency, Federal Acquisition Services. So let's go over a few ground rules though before we get started, just to make sure this goes smoothly as possible. So we are recording this session so we can share it with you, and so you can share it with your coworkers. And then after we complete today, we're going to be sending out a PDF of the presentation along with the questions and answers that were asked and the recording of the event. All the attendees are muted right now. So when you have a question, please answer those or ask those questions in our Q&A box you'll see at the bottom of your screen. If it's not showing up there, there should be 3 dots where it says more, that'll be listed there. So we encourage you to ask questions and comments throughout the meeting. And what we're going to do is between each section, we'll take a break and we'll answer those questions for you. For the sake of time, we might have to skip a few, but we will answer them when we send out the questions to everybody in the mailing. Excuse me. Also, we'll be sending out a survey of the event, and I'll talk more about that later. So for now, sit back and enjoy. And I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Caitlin Zaslow.
Good morning. Like Dorothy said, my name is Caitlin Zaslow. I am the PBS Workplace Solutions Supervisor, and here this morning to welcome you all to the first ever customer connection. We are super excited that you are here, and we are looking forward to a great agenda today. Today's speakers will include Joanna Rosado, our Regional Commissioner, myself, and Amy Klein, who is the PBS Interior Design Supervisor for Region 3, as well as Jim Boyle from FAS, and Dorothy will speak again at the end from our Customer Accounts branch. The agenda today will include some opening remarks from Joanna to welcome all of us, as well as an overview of the Workplace Solutions and Interior Design groups from Region 3. Because we are located in Philadelphia, we are lucky to share an office space with our FAS counterparts with the Integrated Workplace Acquisition Center. So Jim Boyle will be speaking about the furniture and technology offerings that IWAC has based out of their Region 3 office. Amy and I will discuss a case study of our GSA regional office building located at the Dow building in Philadelphia, and also touch on some return to facilities information that GSA can provide. Some post-pandemic resources, we just want to touch on it. We know it's a hot topic, and we have some good resources for you guys. And then also PBS Accounts Branch will finalize the process of what a workplace engagement and overview will look like. And if you have any questions, as Dorothy mentioned, please feel free to use the Q&A box, and we will do our best to get them. With that, I'd like to introduce Joanna Rosado, our Region 3 PBS Regional Commissioner, and look forward to talking to you guys in a little bit. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Caitlin. Well, I just want to send a warm welcome to everybody. If we were back in a facility, we'd be sitting in a conference room right now talking to you and probably sharing some coffee and some snacks. But this is our world today here on video. So why are we here today? For us, the best way for us to serve you is to get to know you and for you to know us. And with that, our team has come together to create this forum. We want you to learn more about GSA and how we can help you take advantage of our expertise and the programs available to you. As Caitlin and Dorothy said, you'll hear from various groups like our interior design group, workplace and customer accounts, as well as from our Federal Acquisition Service partners at the Integrated Workplace Acquisition Center. As we learned from the poll, and as we know, since March, most of us have been working away from our facilities. And although we are on site, where we have not been on site as a group in our regional office, but we have been on site where our customers are on site. Our buildings have never closed. And you've needed different degrees of access to your space, and we've tried to provide that for you. While we've been away, we've gotten really good at using technology to do things that we can't do in person. So you're going to see our space at the Dow building via a drone, which is really cool. And you'll get a feel for that open work environment. While we've been living in a world of bricks and mortar or sheetrock and workstations or whatever you want to call it, space and real estate has been our key. The work has driven our need and your need for space. And our strategy has been to adapt that environment to fit the work. Going forward, we are going to be adapting the work to fit the environment, just like we're doing today. You're going to do the same things to work safely, scheduling staff, staggering shifts, controlling common use areas, and distancing to try to deal with some of the challenges that the pandemic has brought us. But what will the future look like? And this is something that we're all questioning today. How will the footprint look in our office spaces? How will we configure workstations? What equipment will we need? What technology will we need? One thing for certain is that there is no one size fits all solution. And if you take anything away from today, that's really our message. We want to work with you to learn what's going to work best for you. We want to be your trusted advisor as you make space decisions. You saw a quote up on the screen. I don't even remember saying that, but we were having one of our preparation meetings for this forum. And I said that really the process that we have to get your requirements and to work with you to determine what you need can get us to where we want to be, no matter what the outcome will be, where we are working. And I think that that's really the key, is getting at what the needs will be and how we can adapt to that. So before the presentation starts, we request, if this event is useful to you, please let us know if we'd like to schedule future conversations and highlight different aspects of space delivery for you if that's something that you think you need. And also, please make sure to fill out the survey that you're going to receive to let us know what you're interested in. I look forward to a robust presentation today, and welcome to Region 3, Philadelphia GSA. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanna. So we're going to move forward here today, but before we do, we have I'm going to answer this question quickly, just to let you know. Someone requested if they can get continuing learning points from this presentation today. And I don't have the answer to that question, but I will get that answer to you when we send out the presentation and the survey afterwards. So continuing on, next we have Amy Klein and Caitlin Zaslow, who are going to be talking about Region 3's workplace solutions and interior design sections. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Amy Klein. As Caitlin mentioned, I'm the interior design supervisor, and Caitlin and I will be kicking things off, just giving you an overview of our respective teams and talking about some of the services that both of our groups can offer you.
So as mentioned before, I'm Caitlin Zaslow, and I am the supervisor of the Workplace Solutions team. We are a new team in Region 3, created in December of 2019, and we consist of myself and 4 wonderful team members who have backgrounds in interior design: Patrick, Jean, Michael, and Liz, and we all consist of the Workplace Solutions team. We all were interior designers under Amy's team prior to the creation of Workplace Solutions, but we have been very excited to start this new team, and we think that the role of our team, which I'll get into in a little bit, plays a critical role in making sure that the pre-planning of design, the design process works for our region. So what is Workplace Solutions? We are advocates for good design and good planning, and I like to tell people that the Workplace Solutions team is the pre-design team. So although we all are interior designers by trade and we love putting a pen to paper in AutoCAD, we also like to make sure that we are planning to make sure that the design of a space actually goes smoothly. So we focus on tasks mainly during project identification and initiation, and we ensure that the program of requirements are accurate and that the space is right-sized. We want to make sure that the space works for individual agencies, and we understand that not one size fits all. So again, we are advocates for good design planning, and we are also a resource for Total Workplace tools. We work hand in hand with the Total Workplace Program Management Office out of our central office to use programs such as FIT or National Workplace Engagement. What's a workplace engagement? An engagement is an in-depth study to look at an agency's workplace. I like to say that sometimes the Workplace Solutions team is a touchy-feely team, and I'm not sure if my team would agree with me, but we like to get to know an agency. We like to get to know how the agency works, what their quirks are, what's really important, and what is their culture. And it's important to us to truly understand what the agency is like on an internal level so that we can make suggestions for their design moving forward. In order to do this, we like to be in person, but obviously in the situation that we're in right now, we understand a lot of this stuff can happen virtually. But we do questionnaires and leader interviews. We love on-site tours, but we are also open to some good FaceTime tours or drone videos that we can look at in a little bit. But again, like, we truly just want to understand how your agency works, and then through the workplace engagement process, we develop a report that can be used in the planning. After the engagement, we continue the requirements development process. And really what the requirements development process is just a further development of the engagement information that we gathered. And this is turned into eventually a program of requirements. And we use the POR as the basis of design for moving the space forward throughout design. The POR is less touchy-feely and more of an Excel document that lists every single space need that your agency would have. We use the employee engagement process again, but the actual program will have every single space that would be included in your design listed out with the coordinating square footage that we have developed together. Again, we as workplace specialists do have an idea of what a typical cafe space might consist of, or a typical small conference room square footage would be. However, through the requirements development process and the workplace engagement process, we truly understand where you guys are coming from and can help with quantities and adjust sizes accordingly. Throughout all of this requirements development process, we also manage the change management aspect. And this is the part that really helps your agency and helps our customers prepare and support their employees to successfully adapt to the changes that are going to happen. And whether the changes are via the physical space or just in technology or policy, change is hard, and change is hard for a lot of people. So we have seen that. We've seen it firsthand. We've seen it ourselves as we've gone through some of these big changes. And we want to be the team to be able to help you manage this transition. So we provide a structured approach that supports the individuals within an organization to adapt to these ever-changing workplace policies. We have done it in-house, but we also can contract out with an AE firm to help with that. And a lot of times the change management just includes communication plans, lots of pilots if it's a physical change. So we can do pilot workstations to get employees comfortable with a changing furniture plan, or we can do contractor recommendations and find like really great change management services and help you contract for them too. Change management is a long process, and it really happens from the very beginning in the workplace engagement and goes through all the way through design and move and everything that Amy's team completes as well. So both our teams, mine and Amy's, work together with the change management process, and we are closely linked in this specific service that we offer. After we get through the requirements development, Excel type information, we do like to put things down into an architectural drawing. Before we start with real developed design, we like to do some pre-design work, and that includes adjacency and blocking plans. Adjacency plans or diagrams are simple bubbles that kind of show the elements of your organization and how and where they need to be located. So if it's really important that the legal team is next to the real estate team, then we would make sure that in the adjacency diagram that those two groups are located and connected through a line. This helps further develop into the blocking plan, which then takes those adjacency diagrams and puts them into an actual floor plan. This floor plan can be the actual physical space you're moving to, or an example floor plan. It can be anything that we need it to be wherever we are in the process of design. But both the adjacency and blocking plans help the design team as well as you, the customer, to kind of physically see what's working and what's not. There are groups that can't be located next to each other, and we want to make sure that we get that right prior to getting too far down into design. Test fits and stacking plans are super similar to adjacency plans and blocking plans, and but they're just another further refinement. Stacking plans are usually vertical, so if you are a multi-floor agency located in a building, we would do a stacking plan to make sure that the elevators or internal stairwells, those types of things, are located in the correct place, and make sure that if an adjacency diagram showed real estate and legal had to be located next to each other, they might be on different floors but have an internal connecting stairwell. Test fits are just a further refinement again, and it usually shows a little bit more complexity and will probably include a generic furniture layout, which helps visualize exactly how you can see your space moving forward. So design intent drawings, I'm sure we've all heard of them, are really the project transition point between the Workplace Solutions team and Amy's interior design team. And what DIDs are the culmination of all of these planning steps. So we do our best as workplace specialists to gather all of the correct information and make sure that up until this point, we have accurate, identifiable information that can be put onto a floor plan. And it's really important that decisions that are made throughout the pre-planning process are then shown in the design intent drawings. DIDs kind of include everything that you would know as a typical customer agency, partitions, doors, furniture, power, and data, and can be given to any AE firm to complete the actual construction documents. GSA Workplace Solutions, as well as interior design teams, can support DID development in multiple ways. We can review agency plans if you're an agency like Social Security who has in-house designers and create their own DIDs, we are more than happy to review them, make sure they fit within the space and are appropriate, as well as reviewing plans developed by a lessor's architect. So sometimes we work directly with an architect from a specific building to make sure that the requirements we gathered through the workplace engagement are shown in the drawing. And then also we do some in-house design development for minor alterations, mostly small stuff within federal space, but if it's something that you need, you can always contact myself or Amy if you have an issue with an in-house minor alterations. So at this point, I'm going to hand it back over to Amy and let her talk about her design team. But really what I want to convey is that Amy and I work very closely together and our teams work very closely together. And any question that you have regarding pre-design work or pre-planning through design and move and everything, feel free to contact both of us and we can work out where we start. So thanks so much, and I'll talk to you guys in a little bit.
Hey, so the interior design team is comprised of myself along with 5 designers. We have Colleen, Kristen, Suzanne, Susan, and Shannon. So before we get into all the services that we offer, I just wanted to give an overview of what is interior design, or rather, what does it mean for GSA with a government design? So for us, with PBS, we have a national presence. However, the services do vary region by region. I just want to point this out in case you have counterparts from other regions who may have worked with PBS in the past and had experiences with different services being offered. So as we get into those, I'll kind of mention some things that may be different just in case you have any questions. But here in Region 3, our designers are involved throughout the project planning process, execution, and closeout. And we'll be involved in tasks such as the furniture procurement, your submittal reviews, and coordinating with various trades to make sure they're complying with all the project requirements. So before I jump into the finishes, I won't rehash all of it because I know Caitlin mentioned it, but as she said, there's a lot of overlap between our 2 groups. So some of the tasks that she just talked about earlier, like the change management and the DIDs, that's where you'll see some overlap between the 2 groups and seeing both sides working on those services. Once your DIDs have progressed onto CDs or construction drawings, at that point the interior designers will also be assisting in reviews of those as well, just to make sure that all comments that were previously submitted have been incorporated in the drawings, and just to verify that all of your requirements have really been captured in these plans before you get to construction, because changes found earlier are always less expensive to incorporate than when you get further down the road and have construction change orders. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was the finish recommendations. I put this first because I think it's that task that everyone thinks of when they hear the word interior designer, but it really does go far beyond just the aesthetics of what looks pretty out there. That's where our designers can really assist you and help you figure out what finishes make the most sense for your specific project. They'll take into account attributes you may not have thought of, such as the product life cycle costs, any maintenance concerns that you may have, sustainability attributes, and just making sure that it's a good fit for you. Most commonly, we're working on lease projects where we're just verifying that our architects and engineers have specified finishes that adhere with all of the lease requirements. So we're just verifying the specifications. However, I do want to mention on some of our federal projects, we are putting together full finish boards, and we're making sure that all the P100 language is adhered to. So next up is the furniture procurement. This is one of those program offerings that I mentioned varies by region. For example, I know in region 2, they do very limited furniture, but here in region 3, part of our bread and butter, whether our designers like it or not sometimes, because it is a big undertaking, but I think it's a really valuable service that our region offers. We're involved in many furniture projects, and if an agency elects to work with us, for their project, the PBS designers can help you all the way from requirements development through the closeout of that contract, really acting in that PM capacity for the furniture contract specifically. And in here, region 3, as Caitlin mentioned, we're really lucky in that we have FAS sitting right upstairs. We've been able to work with them and collaborate over the years. An example of this is we actually put into place a couple years ago a PBS BPA for furniture that was put in place by FAS, and it covers regions 1 through 4 for GSA. And with this, for you guys, what you really need to know is that it translates to a slightly compressed schedule for the furniture procurement and seeing an overall budget savings because they've really negotiated some deep discounts on that furniture. I do want to note though with the furniture, because it's considered personal property, it does have direct labor associated with it. So if you're not familiar with that term, all it really means is that there are an hourly rate associated with the designer's time and your contracting officer's time for the tasks associated with that procurement. Next up is move coordination. So if you're not familiar, what is a move coordinator? So your move coordinator is someone who can help you plan the logistics of your physical move, all the way from phasing and coordination with the trades through scheduling and more. So these contracts can really be tailored to your specific needs and to the end user, and this is where a GSA designer can be really valuable to you. We're pretty familiar with the offerings available and can work with you to figure out and tailor the needs for the contract to make sure that it really, you're not spending money that you don't need to. If you could do some things in-house, or the areas where it'd be you can get the most bang for your buck, will help you tailor those into your contract. So similarly to the furniture, we can kind of help guide you through the whole process, through the requirements development, preparation of the scope of work, actually getting that contract awarded, and then managing that contract throughout. And I just want to mention some of the services that move coordinators do offer. Like I said, we talked about some of the scheduling and the development of the migration plans. Some other interesting things that they can do are setting up help desks to help with your questions that are posed at following your move, or town hall meetings to really educate your employees as throughout the process and make sure they're aware of what's going on. And the last service I wanted to touch on this morning was signage and graphics. So this category covers several things, including wayfinding signage, graphics, vinyl film, government artwork, and branding. So our Region 3 designers can help you develop your scopes for these things, develop some concepts, and on top, I just wanted to include a couple samples for you to take a look at. The top photo there is actually our lobby of our ROB space. You'll see that in a tour in a few minutes. But that's a graphic that was designed in-house, and it's a vinyl decal that was applied to the wall. And the lower image that you'll see on there is actually from the Army Corps in Baltimore, and this was a wayfinding strategy that was employed throughout the space so people could easily navigate through. And that's it for our services this morning. So do we have any questions?
I did see just one quick question in the Q&A box, was if a copy of the slides will be shared, and that will will be shared after the end of the presentation along with the recorded option of the whole entire presentation. If there's no other questions, we will pass it back to Dorothy to move on to the next group.
Great, thank you, Amy and Caitlin. It's very interesting. If our audience, if you're not aware of this, not every region of GSA has design staff like Region 3 does. We're kind of unique in that way. So, and they're a very talented group of people. So I highly recommend you take advantage of their services. So moving forward, our next presentation is from Jim Boyle, who is with Federal Acquisition Services. He's here to discuss some of their program offerings. Jim?
Hello, good morning. My name is Jim Boyle, and I'm a business management specialist for the Integrated Workplace Acquisition Center's business development team. I'm here today to talk a little bit about what our center can offer. The GSA Multiple Award Schedule program is an option for agencies to looking to buy their own furniture. There are a number of manufacturer dealers on schedule, both large and small, that you can do business with. Additionally, a lot of our dealers have various socioeconomic statuses, so using the schedule can help meet your socioeconomic goals. Additionally, utilizing the dealers and manufacturers, you'll see deep discounts offered on their GSA schedule contracts. But since the schedule price is a floor price, companies will also offer deeper discounts when bidding on your requirements. In addition to furniture, the MAS schedule program is a source for all your records management needs. The GSA schedule contract holders have solutions for both your physical and electronic record management requirements. All of the record management companies on the SIN adhere to the guidelines set forth by the National Archives and Records Administration, or NARA. In fact, our record management team has a close working relationship with NARA and have several calls a month with them. I would know, I've been on a few, I get lost in some of the technical stuff, but they work really well together. This means you can trust that your agency is in compliance with all the regulations set forth by NARA when you use the GSA Records Management SIN. Next slide, please. The GSA FAS team in Philadelphia has a group of acquisition professionals who can manage a complete acquisition for your organization. Services cover the entire acquisition process from the procurement strategy development to delivery, task orders, and accounts payable. This team has experience establishing blanket purchase agreements, or BPAs, for both GSA and external federal agencies. I believe the last presentation referenced the one for PBS, and one of our biggest customers for these BPA for furniture is PBS. We've established convenient and streamlined furniture BPAs for the PBS teams across the United States, which makes it easier for them to take care of their tenant agencies' furniture needs. The GSA FAS group in Philadelphia offers no-cost consulting services for any federal buyer who needs assistance with furniture, records management, or 3D print needs. Our team of contracting officers has managed these type of procurements, and they want to help you succeed with your projects. From sharing sample procurement documents or just simply getting on a call and talking through your requirements and helping you with any aspect of your procurement, they're there to help you out whenever you may need. There isn't a furniture scenario they haven't dealt with, a record they can't manage, or an object they can't 3D print. Well, okay, maybe that's not true, but our 3D print team did help develop the 3D print SIN requirements, so they're rather familiar with that process as well. Additionally, if you need furniture and do not have the time or resources to conduct a furniture acquisition, you can rely on GSA Global Supply. GSA Global Supply offers quick and easy ordering of the National Stock Number, or NSN items. These items are already under contract, so you don't need to consider multiple sources. You can simply choose the product from our online ordering site that you want and complete your order with a purchase card or an activity address code. Next slide, please. Okay, this is about discussion of our COVID response. A little background on the COVID-19 when it first impacted us. GSA and PBS partnered to develop a comprehensive report seen on the link here on the slide to make it easier for you to understand the products GSA offers that support the safe return to the office environment. PBS worked to identify the types of products the customers would need in their office space, and the FAS team partnered with its furniture suppliers to identify the sources of those important items. On the 3D print side, our 3D print team worked with America Makes, which is a public-private partnership that includes the FDA, the NIH, and the VA to add 3D printed PPE products to several of our 3D print schedule contracts. Next slide, please. The Quality Partnership Council. If your role at your agency includes managing furniture needs, you may want to consider joining the GSA Quality Partnership Council, or QPC. The QPC is a forum that brings together the furniture industry, GSA, and federal furniture buyers. We typically meet in person twice annually in Philadelphia, but since the pandemic, we've been moving to virtual meetings. These biannual meetings allow us to present timely agendas that touch on the topics that matter. For example, in June, we met virtually and covered a wide variety of COVID responses in industry and government and how it's going to impact the business moving forward. Please let us know if you'd like to join. We are always looking for new members, and we're not shy to assign work to the new folks. Next slide, please. Okay, thank you. This concludes the presentation. We have 3 convenient email addresses you can reach us at. For anything related to furniture, you see the furniture email email shown, records management, and the 3D print box as well. And if you reach out to any of those, we'll quickly respond to you and provide any of the assistance mentioned, whether it's assisted acquisition or just if you have a few questions, trying to find some products or anything like that. With that, I think we do have a few questions. The first question I have, it says, when I try to search for furniture contractors' price lists on GSA Advantage, I'm having a hard time finding specific products I need for my procurement. How can I find this information? Okay, that's a good question. As it can be difficult to locate furniture products on GSA Advantage sometimes, I would recommend using an RFI in GSA eBuy. Since it's just an RFI, you don't have all your procurement documents ready. You can simply issue the RFI to the SIN or the SINs you think your products might fall under and wait for the contractors to reply to see if they have it. This should help narrow down your search for the product and help you with competition moving forward in your procurement. The next question we have, let me see, let me just read this here. It says, I don't know anything about how to buy furniture or how to develop my requirements. Could the assisted acquisition furniture services help? Certainly, that's why they're there. They often involve the development of requirements, the issue of RFQ documents, the evaluation, the award, and post-award services. They can provide all of those services for a furniture procurement or just one of them, depending on what you may need. Our contract officers, have dealt with hundreds of different furniture products over the years. So there really isn't a scenario they haven't seen. So they can provide the services and know how to do a procurement from scratch or just, help you out in areas that you may need assistance with. Okay, third question we have says, if I can just order furniture from the NSN program, why would an agency need assistance with a furniture project? That's a good question, and it kind of breaks down on how your procurement is going to go. The NSN program for furniture is typically used to buy specific items to fulfill specific needs, Since the orders are for one specific product, albeit sometimes at high quantities, we typically see it as used to satisfy a specific need. Like, for example, if a military base needs 100 chairs and 20 desks, and they all want the same thing, they might use the NSN program to buy those. We've seen a lot of NSN orders for the sit-to-stand desks, small quantity orders for small offices and stuff like that. But if your agency is looking to move into a new space or refurbish their existing space, the NSN program really wouldn't be an option for you. That type of project would be complex, and you would need the assistance of, either an assisted acquisition buy, or if the individuals were familiar with doing it themselves, that would be a much more comprehensive furniture project with design and layout and stuff like that. So that's where you would need the assisted acquisition. While I'm mentioning NSN, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention our NSN healthcare furniture. Moving forward, we do have a new healthcare furniture line that is intended for use in hospitals and other medical facilities. It includes patient and waiting room furniture. And if that's something you have interest in, please reach out to us and we can help you out with that. We're really excited about the new offerings there. Okay, I think we have time for a few more questions. It says, how do GSA sources IDIQ BPA related to Unicor requirements? Can we purchase straight or have to deal with Unicore first? It really depends on the scope of the requirements, and we can work with you in identifying whether or not Unicore can satisfy the requirements, because they are a required source, or if the project is too complex, we do have language that we've written in our ACT plans and stuff like that that identify how you know, if you do need a Unicore, or if you don't, if the order is too complex, how you can not use Unicore. I want to use my words carefully here. It is possible to find a reason that they may not be able to satisfy the requirement, and you would be able to solicit to schedule contract holders, if that makes sense. So hopefully I answered that. And then we have one more question. It says, if I have projects in other regions, can we use yours to procurement of furniture? As far as assisted acquisition is what I'm believing that question is asking. I would say yes. We've done assisted acquisitions for Region 3, you know, Regions 1 through 10, NCR. The BPAs are through 1 through 4 is one of the BPAs. There's one for 9 and 10 that we stood up as well. And then the other regions have their own BPAs. So yes, any region would be eligible and could certainly use the assisted acquisition service we provide for furniture procurement, whether it be a PBS directly or a PBS customer agency working, you know, PBS working with FAS in the furniture procurement. They certainly could use our services can satisfy their procurement needs. Okay, I think that is it for the questions. So thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you, Jim. Very interesting. I don't know, I was thinking about the sit to stand desk that Jim mentioned and how I could really use my sit to stand desk at home. We do have that in the office, but I really miss it, having been at home since March. So now we're moving on to one of the most exciting parts of our presentations, in my opinion, and that's a video that we're going to present today of our regional office building in Philadelphia. So for that, I'm going to welcome back Amy and Caitlin.
All righty. So as Dorothy said, we just wanted to share a case study today. We wanted to take a look at our own office and really show you how we have used and personally employed all of those services that you've heard about so far this morning on our own project when we moved to this new space in 2015. So before we dive into the case study, we just want to really stress the fact that what you're going to see is specific to our unique requirements and all of our culture and the different divisions that are in our space. And as Joanna mentioned earlier, it's not a one size fits all. So this worked for us. It may not work for everyone, but we just want to talk a little bit about how we got to this place and what's worked for us and things that we've changed. So the big drivers for our project was that we wanted to reduce the footprint. We wanted to create a really collaborative space since we have a culture of teaming, and we wanted to achieve a LEED CI certification. So before we jump into the drone tour, which I'm sure everyone's looking forward to, Caitlin and I are just going to give a little bit of the background and share some of the facts of the project.
Thanks, Sam. Amy and I were both interior designers working on this GSA regional office building, and we call it the ROB all the time. So if you hear that, that's what we're talking about. But really, this decision started 15 years ago. And over 15 years ago, probably, the decision was made as a region by our then PBS commissioner in Philadelphia that we were going to move forward into a digital and mobile environment. And if you think about what life was like 15 years ago, it is significantly different than it is today, not even taking into account the craziness that is 2020, but just 15 years ago, how different the life and the internet and our capabilities as an agency and government, federal government together were. But with that decision in mind and with that forward-thinking mentality, we began this slow evolution of our office. And it first started with the decision to downsize our existing space. We were located at 20 North 8th Street, which is the Strawbridge's building in Philadelphia. And it was an old department store. And actually, when we first moved there, there was a department store located on the first few floors, and we were located above it. We created a team in-house called the Time Team, which was a transition into a mobile environment. And the Time Team was created to kind of make the decisions of how we were going to move our agency as a group and a culture and move it forward into this new design decision. So what did we do? We knew that we were going to downsize in square footage, and we knew that our FTE count was probably going to stay the same or even increase. So we had to make some tough decisions, and we were able to slowly take desks offline in our existing space. And what we did was literally like tape off with caution tape some areas of desks to get people used to the idea that we were going to be sharing and that we were going to have this mobile environment. We knew that the approximate desk sharing ratio in our new space would be 2 desks to every 3 employees. So it wasn't going to be 1-to-1, but it also wasn't going to be exactly 2-to-1. So we were able to replicate that in place. One of the things we did know as a team was that our current office at Strawbridge's was not set up to be a successful mobile or desk sharing kind of space. We were used to a lot of those open office type of things, like courtesies about being quiet or, like not shouting across entire office floor plan. But it wasn't set up to be successful as a mobile desk. So we were fairly confident that moving to the Dow building and moving to our new space, where we had the ability to make decisions on what a successful mobile office could look like, would make the transition even easier. Like if we could do it at Strawbridge's, we could do it at Dow. So some of the things we did while we were planning for the move to Dow was we looked into what our employees really liked. What did they like about the space at Strawbridge's? What didn't they like about the space? And one of the things we found that people didn't like was creating a reservation for a desk. And we found that about 70% of our employees like to be able to walk into the space at 7 o'clock in the morning and find a desk that was open and sit down. The other 30% wanted to know where they were going and wanted to make sure that they had a desk reserved that they were comfortable at. But we thought that having that information through surveys and interviews and all kinds of good stuff that we did, we thought that having that information would make the move to Dow more successful if we took that information and implemented it. So we made approximately 70% of our desks on the second floor drop-in, and about 30% were reservable via an internet system called Book It that we use. We also used and created a team called the ROB Courtesies team. And it was kind of like everything I ever learned, I learned in kindergarten type of things, like how to live cohesively and nicely with your neighbors. And it was a lot about like being polite and using inside voices and making sure that you follow the rules. But all important things, and honestly, I think sometimes having it written out and kind of agreed upon by management as well as the staff in advance really helped us as we moved forward to the Dow building. During the workplace engagements that we did and the programming efforts and pre-design work that we implemented prior to the move, we did find out that at Strawbridge's at the 8th Street location, we felt like we had inadequate conference space. As Amy mentioned previously, we are a very collaborative agency, and we are in meetings all the time. So it was important moving forward that we had enough conference space. And a lot of the conferencing was 2 to 4 person conference space. So we made sure in our design that the new space would have all of those types of spaces for us. So In actuality, when we moved, we had 618 full-time employees. And today, as it stands, we have 644 full-time employees located using the ROB as their full-time duty station. But if you notice, the space went from 133,000 square feet to 94,000 square feet. And that's a 40,000 square foot difference, which turns into major dollars, but we were able to successfully transition and move to a beautiful new space where everybody is able to do their job and do it well.
So next, we'll just talk a little bit about the rent savings, the technology, and the utilization rate. So as I mentioned previously, one of the big drivers for our project was to reduce the footprint. GSA nationally tracks the utilization rates, and we have a standard of 136 square feet per FTE. For those of you who don't know, that's full-time employee. As you can see, we don't have 136, so I just wanted to talk about this a little bit and to see how we got to that number. So actually, we did a lot of research going into this move, as Caitlin said, and we did a lot of legwork before we even started that transition. And as part of that, we really pulled together a lot of our historical data that we got from our HR systems, our leave systems, and our HSPD 12 cards to see on our peak days. So for us, that translates to Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, as many people work from home on Mondays and Fridays. We wanted to see on those peak days how many people are in the physical office, not on leave, not traveling, not teleworking. Once we determined how many people were in the office, we worked with our central office and were granted a waiver to aim for 139 square feet per employees. We could ensure that we would have enough seating for everyone if people needed to come into the office. So that was the goal that we strove for and we ended up achieving. So we reduced our utilization rate by 80 square feet per person, which translated, of course, to a huge savings of space, as Caitlin mentioned, and huge dollar value savings. So we reduced our rent from around $4 million a year to $2.7 million a year, which is huge. And then I also just want to point out with the technology that GSA invested heavily in the technology. It really allowed us to have a successful space in that mobile environment without the wireless internet, without having our conference rooms set up in advance the way we needed them to be. You couldn't just pick up and move around the office, and it just wouldn't have allowed the new strategies to be successful. So we always recommend that if you have an agency with limited funding, to always invest in the technology over the space, because it'll change the way you work.
So what was our actual process? As I mentioned, we did perform a workplace engagement for ourselves. We did surveys and leader interviews, focus groups of employees, and really tried to focus on making sure that we were gathering the most accurate information for our space. The workplace engagement started about 5 to 7 years prior to our move, and it's crazy to think that it was that long ago as we moved forward, but it really did allow us to do some real digging into what we were capable of, both on a technology scale as well as a space scale. So we hired an architectural firm to talk to our management and staff and see how far we could push ourselves. Like I said, we used focus groups, surveys, interviews, and got a cohesive look at our office currently and then where we wanted to be in the future. Again, change management played a major role in our ability to successfully transition to a mobile environment. These slow, progressive changes in place really made the transition easy and doable for our employees. I'd like to say that, you know, Amy and I are both interior designers, but we part-timed and highlighted as therapists during this process. And sometimes people just wanted to talk, and they wanted to kind of talk through their feelings about what it would be like to not be able to have their wedding picture set up on their desk, or, you know, pictures of their kids like all plastered all over their cubicles. And it was a hard change. And one of the things that we have done was that we would like give examples of how we were transitioning ourselves. And it was hard for us too, you know, it wasn't like we were immune to the difficulties of change. But I had had a baby right when we were going through this process, and I was the first one to share the 12,000 photos I had on my phone of my newborn baby. And every time someone would say, but look at this adorable picture, and I'd be like, yeah, but look, she just ate, you know, peas for the first time last night. And I could show them all of the pictures. And so it was just a change of the way that we share our personal lives, or the fun stuff that makes work feel like home. And so again, like, we use technology to make those changes rather than a physical printed photo that was on our desks. Like I had mentioned before, we did do change management in-house. However, since then, we have successfully hired contractors to do the change management as a service that we contract for. The furniture procurement was also integral to the success of this project. We went from like 72 square feet or something, 64 square foot workstations to 42 square foot workstations. We were used to an open office environment. We were used to sitting in cubicles, but it was a change to have to downsize a little bit. However, I know Dorothy mentioned and Jim mentioned too, with the change in furniture, we also got sit-to-stand desks, and those were super helpful in making the mobile environment much easier. Not only to be able to stand while working, which is a nice treat, but also just the fact that Jim might be 6'5" and I am 5'2", and we could sit at the same desk every day and be able to easily adjust the desk to make it comfortable for us to sit at. One of the other things we did with the furniture was, and it kind of ties furniture and change management together, were furniture pilots. And in our office in the Strawbridges building, we cleared out space to try out some different size and shape workstations to see what our employees liked. And we used technology to gauge our employees and have them vote on what features they liked, what setup they liked, whether they liked sitting, you know, back to back or face to face, and what kind of sit to stand desk they liked best, whether it was electric or crank, or and we tried to really like get their input and get their buy-in and make our decisions while purchasing the furniture, and use their input to really make some good informed decisions. We also put out pilot storage lockers. Part of going mobile is the downsizing our personal belongings. So every individual got a personal private locker. And so we put pilot lockers out so everybody could kind of see what would fit and how to pack before we left the Strawbridges building. We also did tours of the space while it was under construction. The furniture, again, wasn't drastically different than what we were used to, but I think having people see it in the new space and feeling comfortable with it prior to their first day in Dow made the move, again, like just that little bit easier and kind of eased some of their fears.
So with the move management, this was a huge portion of the project as well. Once we got our move coordinators on board, they were really integral in helping us get through the move and making sure we had planned all the phases correctly. So we actually transitioned to the new Dow space over 3 phases. We wanted to make sure that each group had a chance to kind of get accustomed with the space, and that allowed us to also, as we were installing the furniture, kind of phase that as well. So as Caitlin mentioned, people had to drastically reduce their personal belongings. So one of the big things that we worked with the move coordinators on was making sure we had plenty of town hall meetings to brief the staff in advance, set their expectations, and make sure they were aware of all deadlines and important things they needed to know, and kind of set the stage that they'd have to start reducing. So they had a lot of notice and they had advance time to prepare for that. We also had our move coordinators helping with the distributing and inventorying of all of the crates and move supplies. This was important because they only had that one locker. We wanted to make sure that people weren't trying to grab a bunch of crates and bringing over things that they wouldn't have a place for, because we didn't want to pay to move things that would just be chucked in the end anyways. And then we had to work just to make sure, since we had a free address, we had to make sure we had central staging areas for all of these crates so we could distribute them to the employees and make sure nothing was lost in the shuffle. For our space, we tried to reuse as much furniture as we could as well to help achieve some of those lead credits. So our move coordinators were really integral in putting together our move migration plans, not only for employees, but for all of those personal belongings that would be moving as well. So we could just make sure, just like the crates, that nothing got lost in the shuffle. Next slide. So before we get into the tour, the last thing, we just wanted to run through the floor plans. We wanted to give you the chance to kind of familiarize yourselves with the layout of the space and kind of give you your bearings as you start flying through the space on the drone, because it can be a little disconcerting where you are. So the first floor you see here is the second floor. This floor houses PBS, the Public Building Service. And as we mentioned previously, PBS is really collaborative and full of teaming, and this whole second floor pretty much is unassigned. You just drop into your space. We will talk about a little bit further into the tour. There are a combination, as Caitlin mentioned, of the drop-in and the reservation seats as well. So we highlighted on all of the floor plans, the areas in yellow are enclosed or support spaces. The goal for our project was to put all of those enclosed spaces with the hard walls toward the core of the space, because as you can see, we have all of our workstations along the perimeter. It was really important, not only for the lead credit, but also for the well-being of our employees to make sure that everyone had access to daylight views. And I also want to note on the lobbies, you'll see on the tour specifically, it's hard to tell from just this floor plan, but as you start in those entrance lobbies, our AE, employed strategy favored by Frank Lloyd Wright, of really giving you the illusion of having a larger ceiling and a larger space by starting off. So your entrance lobby has lower ceilings, darker finishes, and then as you get further into the space, it really opens up, the finishes lighten, and the ceiling raises up a little bit. I just want to mention this because this was a big concern. As Caitlin said, we did a lot of surveys, and one of the things that people loved about our space at Strawbridge's was it had these huge, tall ceilings. And as we were moving over to the Dow space, it had much lower ceilings, and people were just a little concerned that it would feel claustrophobic. But as we get into the drone tour, I think you'll see that, you know, getting creative with the finishes and the lighting really it was not an issue at all. We really achieved success there. So the third floor. So as you can see, the floor plate looks very similar to what you saw on the second floor, but the way it functions is completely different. So unlike the second floor where it's just one division taking up the whole space, we have a number of divisions on this floor, so we really had to get creative about the way we were fulfilling each distinct group's needs and requirements, especially those with special privacy concerns. So on this third floor, as we do the fly-through, you'll see we have check my list because there's so many. The HR, EEOC, ONA, which is our emergency response group. We have a congressional group on this floor, small business, budget, an RC, RA executive area, and then of course FAS. And as we go through the fly-through, we just wanted to point out that one of the big strategies that we used was the placement of architectural features to create privacy without creating an enclosed suite. So the fourth floor. So you won't see this on the drone tour. There's not a whole lot to see on the drone unless you're in the space, but this houses a lot of our support space, as well as the two groups that we had that did have a specific requirement for an enclosed suite, which is down all the way on the left is OIG, and then our OGC space as well, which is our legal team. In terms of support space, we have our IT team up here as well as the help desk. I wanted to mention the help desk because this was new for the Dow space and has been huge, especially since we've transitioned to this mobile environment. It's basically, we call it like the Apple Genius bar, but it's a drop-in area. So if you're having technology concerns, you don't have to put in a ticket and then sit and wait and wait and wait. You can just go up there and get instant help, which has been a game changer for us. We also have on this floor telepresence. We have some file spaces, which is very limited throughout the space. We have a large training room that's shared by all the divisions, as well as the large area Pedro, if you'd want to circle it where CSS is. So CSS is something that's kind of unique to GSA. This is a contracted service that we put into place, and like we mentioned, this has been huge for us too. All the divisions go in on this contract, but this is basically, we call it like our staples. So this is where you can go if you need to get a GOV. They manage the mail, the copying, if you need to have things digitized and scanned, if you have archived files, they really manage that up there. They really do it all. They're amazing. And the other thing that they do for us too that's in the contract is supply stations. So you'll see as we go through the drone tour, various areas throughout the space that have supplies set up. So they go through, that's how we avoided having all the supply closets everywhere, is they'll go through, put out basic office supplies and the sanitizing wipes. So yes, we had them even before 2020, but being a virtual environment, it was always a huge concern, is just making sure that you could clean off your desk and start fresh each morning.
So with all of that background information, we would like to start our drone tour. Amy and I have given about 150 physical tours of this space since we moved here 5 years ago. And this is the 2020 version of it. So come along with us and we will start. As Amy had mentioned, as you could see, we started in like a darker lobby, and as we move forward throughout the space, everything gets lighter and brighter. The ceilings, the walls, the carpet, all of it. And it was something that we had decided as a design team that was really important to us moving forward into this new DAO space. As I had mentioned previously, we have 644 full-time employees who use the ROB as their full-time duty station. And we are a mostly mobile environment with only a few select groups that are assigned a desk. So we will be walking through, like Amy said, the second and third floors. But right here, I wanted to kind of pause real quick to talk about these lockers again. And the process of going mobile was also a lot about managing our personal belongings. And these 18 by 18 lockers with digital locks on them were a dictated size by our central office. And like I had mentioned, there was a pilot in our old space. And one of the things that we found out from one of our most particular employees was that it didn't fit a full-size keyboard. And it was something that we found to be very upsetting, that if we were going to be this mobile free address community, how could we not fit a full-size keyboard into our dedicated space? So what we did, instead of changing the locker size, because we didn't have any information or ability to do that, we changed the full size keyboard size. So we have a slightly smaller keyboard, and it's able to fit in your personal locker. These lockers are assigned, and every full-time employee that has a duty station at the Philadelphia ROB has a locker on their assigned floor. So we can keep going from here.
So as we exit out, you're going to see the column signage here. I just wanted to point this out where it says 5 West and 4 West. This is used for wayfinding. All of the workstations, we use Google Chat for employees to indicate where they're sitting. So you can put that in your chat status, but all of the conference rooms are also notated by, in our reservation system, by what column and floor they're located at. So as we continue down here, on the left, you'll see our library. We consider this like the quiet car. It's where you can go sit with other people, but still get your heads down work done since it'll be quiet. And I just wanted to point out the graphics along that wall that you see right there. Those were designed in-house by Liz Kahn, and they're made to look like abstract books so you can kind of get that library feel. And I do want to mention, we'll get into it a little bit more later, but the second floor, it's heavily used, but the way it's used is very different than the third floor.
So here's another view of our workstations. These are what we consider benching workstations on the left, and they are smaller, only 4 by 6. They have minimal storage, but again, being a mobile environment, we haven't really noticed a need for too much personal stuff. This is our cafe, and we use it for everything from lunch and coffee to the walls that you see right here are movable, so it can open, and there are 2 conference rooms on either side of the cafe. And when the walls are open, we use the space for impromptu get-togethers, retirement dinners, those sorts of things. There are 18 total copier printer areas located throughout the 3 floors. They are shared spaces, and we use them all collaboratively.
So as we continue down this hallway, I just want to point out the conference rooms that you see with the rectangular windows. Those are some of our 4-person conference rooms. That's the majority of what we have based on those occupancy surveys we had prior to the move. And I would just want to note that all of our conference rooms are equipped with monitors mounted to the wall and VGA and HDMI cables in the tables, so you can just plug and play and get up and go. So as we take a look at these workstations over here, take a look at the privacy panels. We have 4 different colors throughout the space: green, blue, red, and yellow. And those are used for wayfinding as well to help indicate which workstations are drop-in and which are reservable. So in a moment, we'll be jumping up to the 3rd floor, and you'll see the HR area up on there, which is this area right here. As you'll see, as we scan about here, the library is placed here specifically because we wanted to create that privacy for HR. So they had a little bit more privacy, and then they have 2 dedicated conference rooms as well to fulfill that need. So here up on the 3rd floor, you can see it looks pretty empty. There's not quite as much seating on the 2nd floor. And what we found is because of the culture of the groups on this floor and just the way it's broken up by division, it wasn't heavily used. So that's actually been repurposed. So we'll talk about that after the tour.
Also to the left where you see the sofas, those were used as a tool to kind of separate that one group that's located to the left, OMA. They had specialized requirements that allowed them to have an enclosed space, but in a feeling of togetherness and community, they decided to be open along with the rest of the office. So you'll notice that there is a major replication of the 2nd and 3rd floors for continuity and eventual reconfiguration. And that's one of the things Amy will be discussing at the end of this, is that we have made some furniture changes to our space since we moved in 5 years ago. We also have informal meeting rooms, which we just passed and are up here on the left. And we use them not only as special, quick meeting spaces, but also as impromptu kind of workstations if the office is feeling a little full that day.
So as we continue down this hallway, we have the RA dedicated large conference room on the left and the shared RC conference room on the right, which brings us to this corner here, which was originally designed as the RC-RA area. But one thing I really wanted to point out, you can see straight ahead here on the north and south walls above the windows, it's just painted. But as we turn, you'll see on the east and west walls, we employed reflective surfaces to give you that illusion of having a larger space. One thing we learned from this process is don't call them mirrors, it makes people very uncomfortable. But the strategy was really successful and people are really happy with the overall look of the space. You'll also see as we scan about here that these workstations are the same as the ones you saw everywhere else in the space. So despite title, everyone has the same workstation. We really use that top-down approach to gain buy-in with our end users. If your boss's boss's boss is sitting in the same seat as you can't complain. So it was just really helpful to get everybody on board.
So moving forward again, it's more of the open office area, and you'll see a focus room with a barn door to the right here. And those are what we use as like telephone booths. They are 1 to 2 person rooms where you can do heads down work or take a phone call, private or professional. We know that everybody has things to do during the day, but they are not private offices. Up here to the right where the blue light is what we call our living room. And it was a space that we designed to kind of take into account a casual, informal gathering space, but also incorporating different ways of working. So we have monitors and the ability to project drawings or information up on the smart screens, but also that back wall that's showing as white is a whiteboard where you can write your notes down and kind of just put a pen to paper and have an old school way of working as well. We'd like to incorporate both different types of working to encourage people to use the space in different ways.
Alrighty. So as we return down to the entrance, we just want to thank you for joining us for this virtual tour. I think this is our first one so far, I'm sure of many, but we just want to thank you for joining us through our space. Okay, so we did talk about during the tour some changes. I haven't covered them all in these pictures, but I just wanted to talk about some of the changes and just really hit home the fact that even though our design was complete, construction was complete, and we've moved in, we weren't done there. So we've continued with post-occupancy surveys and heat maps to really make sure that we don't have any underutilized space. We discovered we did have some, especially now that we're bringing in more employees. As Caitlin mentioned, our FTE count has gone up, so we needed to make sure that we were having the best use of every square foot possible. So I just want to highlight a couple of the changes that we made. So the picture on the left here is the RA area. So this is the third floor library that we looked at, and we saw how it was pretty empty. We found that this space was very rarely used, so it's actually been repurposed to an RA area. We have the added bonus of it being right off the entrance, so she has more access to the public or visitors. And it also opened up more seating. So we were able to put more seats available for the new employees over in that RCRA area that we saw previously. The center photo there, you see at the bottom, that is our LA room. So that's a lease administrative room that's on the second floor for PBS. This was originally designed as 2 separate rooms. There was a small area with 6 workstations and then a large storage room. One thing we found is we were so successful at the digitizing, we really didn't expect to get to that point. But we were actually having a pretty much an empty storage room, and the shelves were completely empty. So we had additional staff come on board. So we recently took down the center wall and added in 8 additional workstations to fulfill that requirement. And then the image on the right is more the high top benching stations. We had some of these planned for our original design. We were thinking they'd be a drop-in, not used as often as not used often, but however, we found this is one of the hottest commodities in the space. People are always trying to get in these. So we added some additional seating so people wouldn't be fighting for it.
So some of the best practices that we employed while performing this project was that it really became a testing ground or a destination for our customers as well as ourselves. I always think it's best to be the one trying it out first before you're selling it to anybody else. And we really have kind of been living the life here. Again, as Amy had said before, we invested heavily in technology. And there are 3 things that make a mobile office work, and it's the correct space, which we designed, the correct technology, which we invested in, and the correct people to live there. And that was through the change management process. So we really prepared them for the learning curve, and the employees were ready. And then also we were able to plan for growth. We have been growing and shrinking for the last 5 years. And I think lately we have hired like 70 new employees or something. And we've been able to do it without any major structural changes, which is pretty exciting. And throughout this COVID process, we were ready. We found out on a Thursday that we weren't coming back to work, and we were all okay. We had our laptops, we had our cell phones, we were able to connect to Google Suite tools, and really it has been quite a successful change through this whole craziness that we were able to move forward in this mobile technology virtual world that we're in. So we are finished talking finally, but if you guys have any questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A box, and Amy and I can answer them via email when Dorothy sends out the slides and the recording.
Hey, thank you, Amy and Caitlin. It was good to see our office again. I didn't realize how much I missed our office.
I know, right?
Yeah.
One quick thing, sorry, Dorothy, I don't mean to cut you off. You stay right here where you are, is real quick, Pedro, if you can go to the next slide. There are some resources available, which will be linked in this presentation for the return to facilities. And they include the GSA website, the FAS Furniture Products and Services report that Jim had mentioned during his presentation, as well as additional COVID-19 resources and CDC workplace guidance. The Workplace Solutions team, as well as your account manager, project manager, anybody at GSA is more than willing to talk to you all about any changes that need to happen within your space regarding a return to facilities. But one thing we want to mention is that we're hoping to not make any knee-jerk reactions, and we're hoping that this whole COVID-19 situation is a distant memory, and we will be moving forward into what will be a new normal soon. So hopefully social distancing and virtual learning and virtual work will all be a thing of the past soon, and we will be just making sure that we build flexibility into our offices as we move forward to accommodate any of these crazy changes that happen further on in our life. So with that, I will pass it to Dorothy and hope that you all enjoyed the tour of our space. And if you're looking for an in-person tour, when life gets a little bit back to normal, Amy and I are more than happy to provide that.
Okay, thank you, Amy, Caitlin. So I'm going to bring us home today. But before I do, I'd like to talk about the account management branch, or the customer accounts branch. So we were formerly under a different division, but now we fall under the portfolio management division. In this division is basically where all the planning begins for our projects. Next slide, please. We now have a group of 6 account managers who also act as planning managers. That term is synonymous in our region, so if you hear one or the other, it's the same person. Kim Hart, Pedro Vieira, Jessica Giannoni, Melanie Abrams, and just recently hired, no more than 2 weeks ago, Pam Pollard and Susan Geiger. So we are going through some changes of our own. And you will note that the planning manager you had a month ago may be changing. However, we still got you covered. No worries there. So each one will be assigned individual customers, and they work with those customers to help identify their project requirements and basically identify new projects moving forward. And doing this, we work with the workplace and interior design services as well. They often, they will step in, especially when an agency is going through a major change, and they'll assist us in a transformation of their new office space to meet any of their goals, if it's around reducing their federal footprint or just implementing a major change in process. That group has been very effective in working together with our team. But just like any plan, when you plan early, the better. You know, the earlier you get in there and you make these recommendations, the easier it is to align with the schedule, the process across the board. Keep in mind, we have federal regulations and GSA process that does require a certain amount of time. So we like to see these kind of workplace engagements happen in the 42 to 60 months even prior to lease expiration, if that's what we're dealing with. If it's a federal project, that's a little different. But just keep in mind, when we have these workplace engagements, it does require that little extra time. So to initiate any kind of project like that, you would reach out to one of your account managers, and they will put you in touch with the appropriate individuals. The next slide, please. So to find the most current list of those assignments, we're listed on gsa.gov under the Mid-Atlantic region. In there, you'll find a section called products and services. Under there is account management, and it will bring you to this page where it will list all the agencies we work with, as well as the account manager who serves that agency. So once you've identified who that person is, then they will get the project started for you, or the process started. They will set up an initial meeting to discuss a workplace engagement, much like we had done for our regional office building. We'll help you refine or redefine your space needs. And if it's in line with the lease expiration, we want to have that process done by 36 months. So then we'll from there lead into finalizing further technical requirements and get your lease awarded by that before the previous one expires. So keep that in mind, that, like I said, the planning process, having that completed early is very important. So with that, I'm just going to check to see if we have any questions. I'm not seeing any at the moment. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today. If you do have questions in the future, please feel free to reach out to your account manager or even myself. Following this presentation, we will be sending out, as we've mentioned earlier, a post survey to ask you things like what kind of future events you'd like to see from Region 3, the Mid-Atlantic region. And there also will be just we're asking for some feedback on today's presentation. And if you, we look forward to hearing from you. We know a lot of you already, but I know there's work out there that we can be of service to more of our customers. I also want to thank all the presenters today. They did an amazing job. I enjoyed this work.